Good evening. I'm Dan Koritz. I'm the chair of the Noise Advisory Committee, and I'd like to present the revised Article 10, a proposal to reduce noise from landscape maintenance equipment. Article 10 would revise the noise bylaw, which is Section 80, to protect residents from noise pollution from landscape maintenance equipment. It restricts the hours of use of all powered equipment, and it restricts the use of gas-powered leaf blowers, which I'll abbreviate as GLBs, to fall and spring cleanups. It does not prohibit the use of any type of powered landscaping equipment. GLBs are a primary focus of Article 10 because they are extremely noisy. They emit large volumes of highly toxic emissions, and they have adverse environmental effects. Even a single GLB far exceeds the noise limit in current state and local code. The local code rather is Section 80, paragraph 3, and I'll make this concrete in a moment. So it's important to note that Article 10 would not create new noise limits. Rather, it would bring landscaping work more nearly into compliance with current law, which limits noise to an increase of 10 decibels above ambient levels. Enforcement of the current noise bylaw to limit landscaping noise is simply impractical without amendment, which is the reason for Article 10. So just how polluting are GLBs? The short answer is very. The California Air Resources Board estimated that GLBs and similar equipment produce more ozone than all California cars combined, and that the emissions from using a single GLB for 1 hour are comparable to driving a Toyota Camry for 1,100 miles. But the lack of emissions controls on landscaping equipment in general is not the sum of the problem for GLBs. Most commercial grade GLBs use two-stroke engines, which is an old and very dirty technology. It's used because the weight to power ratio is favorable. One recent study found that a two-stroke GLB emits approximately 300 times the non-methane hydrocarbons emitted by a Ford Raptor pickup truck. The EPA has warned the two-stroke GLBs emit large amounts of numerous toxic substances, including carcinogens, including benzene. And this is the reason why the Board of Health recently unanimously endorsed Article 10 because of their conclusions about the emissions from GLBs. They wrote that they concur with authoritative bodies, mainly the National Institute on Occupational Safety and Health, that noise at the levels produced by GLBs and substantial exposure to particulate matter and chemical emissions, that's volatile organic compounds, cause a health risk to the operators of GLBs. So just how noisy are they? I put here 2 commercial grade gas leaf blowers in red at the bottom. Steel and Red Max are very common ones. And above that are 2 battery powered professional grade blowers. Now, all of these numbers are on the A-weighted decibel scale. That's a logarithmic scale, so I'll translate some of these numbers back into sound pressure as I go along. I do want to note that the standard metric, which is A-weighted decibels, understates the problem from gas-powered leaf blowers because it doesn't give much weight to the low frequency noise that gas-powered leaf blowers emit. If you look at the second to right column, one of the common measures is sound pressure at the ear. This is the measure that's relevant for permanent hearing loss. The second measure on the right is sound pressure at 50 feet. It's an arbitrary distance, but it's the metric that's used to measure disruption and annoyance. If you look at the third column, you'll see that the gas-powered leaf blowers emit roughly 100 decibels at the ear of the operator. That's not only noisy, that's dangerously noisy. The NIOSH standard for exposure to 100 decibel noise is 15 minutes per 8-hour workday. So just how noisy is it in practice for people in neighborhoods? Now, I'm going to use noise at 50 feet. In Lexington, we have a lot of small properties. So in many cases, the blowers are closer than 50 feet to the neighbors, but I'll use 50 feet because that's the standard measure. So I've circled, I put ellipses around two pairs of numbers. On the bottom right is the noise emitted, again, by a single steel or Red Max gas blower. In the upper right, in the green ellipse, is the noise produced by 4 professional grade battery powered blowers. And if you translate these numbers back into sound pressure out of the decibel scale, what this tells you is that A single gas-powered leaf blower produces roughly twice the noise that's produced by 4 battery-powered blowers. But I'd really rather want to focus on the 80 decibels that I put in a red circle. That's for 3 blowers. Now, if you observe around town, you'll see that commercial landscaping is rarely done with 1 blower. It's typically 2 to 4. I've seen more, but 3 is not an uncommon number. So I'll use that one for illustration. So just how loud is that? Again, this is a common configuration. This is 18 times the noise level of an ambient noise level of 55 decibels. 55 decibels is kind of the high side in my neighborhood. But even if you use that as a base, this is 18 times the noise level in the absence of the GLBs. It's also 6 times the maximum increase in noise allowed under current state and Lexington code. So this is not only illegal, but illegal by a very large margin. So what's been done elsewhere? At least 170 communities have regulated GLBs. That number's almost certainly too low. It's from the Washington Post, and the article is now somewhat dated since the number seems only to be going up. That's a conservative estimate. Many jurisdictions have imposed seasonal limitations similar to those in Article 10. Nearby, they are in force already in Brookline, Cambridge, Lincoln, and Newton. A growing number of communities have prohibited GLB use entirely. This began many years ago in California communities, but it's becoming more common in the Northeast as well. They are now banned, for example, in Washington, D.C., Larchmont, New York, and Chevy Chase, Maryland. So what are the hour limits that we propose? Currently, in the absence of this article, landscape work with powered equipment can be done 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. The exception for Sunday is not in the noise bylaw, it's elsewhere in code. Article 10 would restrict commercial landscapers, contractors to 7 to 6 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays. Many of you will remember this is very similar to what town meeting put in place for construction work last year. The article provides 2 extra weekday hours for residents. This is because many of them work conventional work hours and simply can't do their own yard work during the hours allowed to commercial firms. And they also have the option of doing work from 9 to 5 on Sundays and legal holidays. The GLB seasonal restrictions would be effective May of 2022, next spring. The fall cleanup would extend from September 15th through December 30th, and the spring cleanup would extend from March 15th through May 31st. If you look at nearby towns, you'll see that there is some variation from town to town, but this is in the ballpark of what is being done elsewhere in Eastern Massachusetts. I should say has been done already elsewhere in Eastern Massachusetts. The responsibility and penalties were used wording provided by town council, who wanted to make this consistent with other aspects of town code. The homeowner and contractor are both responsible for compliance. It provides for penalties of up to $50 for a first offense, up to $100 for a second offense, and up to $200 for the third and subsequent offenses. Summary, then, Article 10 would revise the noise bylaw to protect residents from noise pollution from landscape equipment by doing 2 things: by restricting the hours of use of all powered equipment to be similar to that, the limits now in effect for construction work, and to restrict the use of gas-powered leaf blowers to fall and spring cleanups. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.